So I'm going to go over what they're talking about today and tell you guys that this illness is now going back to being as bad as it was before. They're still hitting me with something. And they now admit that they are part of the Israeli military. They reminded me that in a previous video I mentioned that members of the Israeli military would come into the boutique and start talking. And um, they said something different. But what I would like to say is someone who said he was from one place turned out to be Israeli. So he was like, "Oh, I'm from wherever," and I was like, "Oh, could you say something in that language?" And he was like, and his girlfriend started to laugh. He said, "No, I'm really Israeli." So my point becomes, it's strange. That was in 2017. So, and then maybe in about 2016, something else happened, and there were a lot of Israelis. So it's strange that now they're upset. I'll tell you what they're upset about. In a video, they talked about Eric Shafir being Jewish, and in a video I said he was Jewish and he looked Jewish, so they're very upset because they were like Eric told them that I didn't know how Jewish people looked. I didn't prior to all of these people coming into my life and explaining these things. They're really upset now that I'm not going to get into all of their weird things about race. I've linked a video and I'll link it in this description also about how race is just made up. But there are features that certain groups have and certain groups don't have, whatever. But again, a lot of it's made up. But prior to this, the black people, they said black people never told me about hair texture. That is not the same thing. Hair texture doesn't necessarily mean race. And this is what they keep getting confused. Everything they're talking about is so racist that, oh, and they don't like the fact that my lips are chapped. My lips are chapped, first of all, because this technology irritates everything on me, not just my lips. But this technology causes chappedness. I'm not going to, you know, do these videos looking great. I'm going to do these videos showing you the reality of this. That they said I was supposed to get all these lumps all over my face because of this technology. I believe them. That's what happened to my chest and my arm, and I showed you this. They said they're very ashamed. They're ashamed because now I'm identifying who's involved. So I'm going to put this video on the list of who's involved. Anyway, so let me go back to that, what I was saying. So, why does it bother them that they taught me these things, and now that I tell you them, it sounds racist? Hair texture, they said black people never, it wasn't connected to race. It wasn't like black hair on black people's connected to race. No, it's hair texture. That doesn't have this, it's not the same thing. But there are people who aren't black who have black, quote unquote, hair texture. And that's my point. That's not the same thing. These people are coming into this American culture and talking about head shapes, forehead shapes, jaw, protruding jaws, not protruding jaws, all sorts of weird stuff that as Americans, no one's ever taught us. I think the reason Americans don't teach us this is because we are mixed, especially African Americans. It's a very mixed group of people. West Indians are very mixed. So all of these things that these people are coming to this country telling us are extremely racist, and it's not based on being mixed. Okay, so that's that. So that's what they talked about that. The other thing is I want to talk to you guys about some news reports and some new videos. So there are a lot of news reports about scams and scammers. And at one point, people we were the number one country to be scammed. And that's something we need to talk about because gang stalking is, to me, part of a scam. It uses scripts just like romance scams, personality assessments just like romance scams, trying to pay people without cash, like gift cards, cryptocurrencies. So gang stalkers are getting paid, but it's not trackable, just like scams. So there's so many similarities to romance scams, crypto scams, gang stalking. And that's something, the next thing. The other thing I wanted to tell you about is that there are now videos talking about the same thing we're talking about. And I want to ask people if you guys have expertise in these types of radio systems, it proves they were using microwaves for Wi-Fi. Microwaves are unsafe. We don't even want to use our regular microwaves, let alone use it for communication systems and Wi-Fi. So there are people out there finally making the connections. We don't have to argue that anymore. We're also making the connection with how far this sound can travel. So they said when we're walking outside in New York City, we hear it. It means it's out loud. And I want to know, how do you, someone said to get a spectrum analyzer. So I might get that. And I'll take you guys on that journey with the spectrum analyzer. But how are these gangstalkers able to take the sound and make it loud enough for me to hear? That's the next question I have. So there are a lot of questions that I have and a lot of things that I want to look into. So the main point now is that they've said if they can clone what I'm going to say, then they can say it before me and it sounds like they're giving me the idea. You wouldn't have to clone me then. This is the whole point of this. You wouldn't have to 24/7 surveil me to get my ideas to feed it back to me. But you're not feeding me back the best ideas. They said that there have been people online who told me these answers. And yes, there have been, and I've shown you thumbnails. As I'm removing thumbnails, I'm keeping up a few because something people have said along the lines that every single victim is mentioned, these are setups. These people are experts in this. We aren't. We're just regular Americans. There are people in other countries going through the same things, but I can only speak from the American perspective. I don't know why Americans, we tend to talk about this a lot more, I think. That's my opinion. I think it's because as Americans, we're used to having the freedom to talk about these things. They try to scare me that, oh, now that Trump is elected, I'm going to get my freedoms removed. I'm still an American citizen. This is still America. We have the freedom of speech, and they're not going to scare me, as you can tell. The other thing is that they said that their stories aren't exact. They said they were recording it, so they said they'll play the audios. Play the audios. I've been saying this all along. My proof that I have is that at the same time these people allegedly have this incriminating evidence on me, they're sending me cards, thank you cards, and I matched it up in years. And I'm going to show you a video. I'll link it in the description where I'm matching it up with years at the same time. You can't have it both ways. You can't say I'm a sweet person, then say I